Woodworking is an essential part of living on the frontier in the 18th and 19th century. Whether we're making tools or pieces of furniture, it's something that's happening all the time using the resources that are available to us. We've got nothing but woods to work with, so woodworking is one of the first things we're gonna do on the homestead. So Brandon and I have worked on the cabin. We've got those maintenance things done, and it's time to start working on other projects. We need furniture. We need to be able to make tools. We have so many things to do. A woodworking station is really the next step in our homestead. And what we got here is the basis of our pole lathe. I've got Brandon here to tell us about this. He's started to build this one. So let's talk about exactly what this is and how we're gonna build it.
We're gonna start with these 2 posts that have been set into the ground, and then we'll notch a shoulder on each one to put these. These are the rails. So this is the bed that your puppets, the parts that are gonna move back and forth, that's gonna hold your piece of wood that you're gonna turn into your various different things that you need to make.
Right, so we've made this as a pretty permanent workstation.
Yes.
We could make this sort of temporary, movable by building a platform or whatever, but we need to have these stable rails that are level with each other and flat, right?
Correct, yes. These got to be flat, and we've made this one bigger too. So it's not a movable frame. We can do much larger pieces. Now we've got the movable components. These are the parts that will slide back and forth and hold the piece of wood that you want to turn. Now these were made out of ash, and we split it down and hewed it to a square. And then you want to cut notches, these little shoulders. And then this part, the tenon, is going to stick all the way through the bed, and then it'll use a wedge on the bottom side to lock it into place.
And this has to be the right width so it fits tightly between the 2 rails.
Correct. You don't want it to be sloppy or move around. Both of these have to be the same width, so that they both slide within the same channel of the bed. This metal part here is called the pike. This one's fixed on the one side, then on the other side it adjusts. So by turning the handle you can bring it in back and forth to kind of fine tune it, because it will kind of wear out the hole and you'll have to tighten it up as you're working.
Almost everything here you made right out of the woods that are standing behind us. Pieces of ash, other pieces of, well, it's all made out of ash, all out of the same log basically.
Yep.
Everything except for these tiny little metal parts. The 2 pikes, the fixed one and the adjustable one, and then just a couple of nails, and you probably even could have done this out of peg pieces, whatever. I don't imagine we could have made this part out of wood, but we could have tried. So these pieces just fit right in this slot.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Okay.
These are called puppets. They can slide back and forth. And then the wedges.
And the wedges.
So I'm really happy with how tight these are. So to operate this lathe, you've got to have a pole, and you got to have just the right one. If it's too light, it won't return it properly. If it's too stiff, well, you're just going to be working more than you need to. So we found just the right one here, and what we do is we stake it in the ground on the butt end, and then depending on how much tension you want, depends on where you'll tie this off. And we tied it about 3 feet from the stake. Now this will give plenty of return on the rope. Okay, so we've got the pole set right where it needs to be. And now we have the rope, and the rope goes through the footboard, which is staked back here, and it has to move. But you want the rope to come up through the center of the bed, and then we attach it up here to the spring pole. Now you want to use knots that you can undo, because you're going to have to change it and adjust it, and if you don't have enough bite on it, you can undo this, give a little more slack, and wrap it one more time around it, and it'll bite better. Well, everything's looking good. Now it's time to put a piece on here and get it ready to turn. Now when we do this, when you wrap the rope, it has to be wrapped the right way. So you always wrap it so that the ropes are facing you. So when the ropes are facing you, when you push down, it'll cut towards you. Now he's got that on the center on that end, and I'll line this up on the center on this end. and turn it right into the end. Now we've got to make sure that if we need to adjust it if this is coming too close to your face, you can adjust that by, once again, undoing the knots that you've made adjustable. So all these knots are made so that you can adjust it. Now we've got the rope all adjusted. We've got our piece in here. Everything's turning nice. It's not sloppy back or forth. You want it to be tight, but you still want it to spin freely. Now this is the tool rest. After we get everything set, now we can put this in here on the nails that we had. Now that'll give us a solid base to rest our tool as we're turning the piece, because you don't want the tool to move around a whole bunch. You want it to be very, very firm, very solid, and have a good clean cut.
We've got all these individual tools that we'll be using on the lathe or on the wood to bring it into shape. A big gouge is the one that gets used almost all the time. That's the one that we rough it into shape with, and we might even finish it off.
So the challenge with these pole lathes is you're only cutting on the downstroke when you push down, because it's moving towards you. When you let your foot up, it returns, so you're only cutting half of the time, as opposed to a great wheel or a continuous lathe where it's constantly turning. These are much simpler to construct, and you can construct these just out of the woods pretty quickly. But you can only cut on the downstroke. So when I push down, it rotates towards me, and I put the tool into the wood to cut. When I let go, it comes up, and I have to back the tool up just a little bit.
Brandon, thank you so much for putting this together. We're going to be using it all throughout the summer as we work on these other projects on the homestead. We got to build this up. We've got blacksmithing to work on, brick making, and other pottery items to do. We've got an earthen oven to build up. Lots and lots of projects. Thanks for coming along. I hope you tune in as we continue to build up the homestead.